much more serious people than the journalists in the establishment press are looking into this. Not just Judicial Watch, not just Rana and Kayleigh, also the Attorney General. We are very pleased to report that the Honey Badger, Attorney General Bill Barr himself, has come out and directed U.S. attorneys to pursue significant allegations of voting irregularities. This is great news. One, because it's acknowledging there were voting irregularities. We don't know quite how widespread they were, but they were significant. Much, much, much more significant than anything we have seen, at least in my lifetime. Probably since going back to Tammany Hall or going back to LBJ stealing that Senate seat in Texas back in 1948. So that's great. On the one front, you got the DOJ acknowledging that really happened. But then on the other, you see Bill Barr is being careful here. He doesn't want to appear irregular himself. So he says, serious allegations should be handled with great care. Specious, speculative, fanciful, or far-fetched claims should not be a basis for initiating federal inquiries. So he's saying, look, if it's some wild accusation, there's no evidence for it, or it's a very minor allegation that really wouldn't have swung anything, we're not going to spend federal resources on that. But for significant claims of fraud, with evidence, we're going to investigate very thoroughly. This is pretty important. I've noticed, especially watching Jay Tapper, but watching people on the left like him, or watching even some people on the right, people are very impassioned right now. And I understand why. I mean, especially on the right, because the people on the right think that the election was stolen. You'll notice I have not been quite as impassioned, quite as screaming from the rooftops, making big claims. I am making the same claims now that I made a month before the election, which is, namely, the mail-in ballots have posed this singular problem. The crooked cities, such as Philadelphia and Detroit, have posed a singular problem. We didn't know on election night who the winner was. We still don't know who the winner of the election is. It's going to go to court. The legal process is going to play out. This has happened before in American history. It will happen again in American history, and the courts will decide who wins. And people still might not be happy with that. And they might say the courts didn't do enough, or they might say the courts did too much. But that is the way the process will be playing out, one way or another. And so we want to be cool-headed here. We want to be patient as the left is screaming, call him the president-elect, call Biden the president. We have to tune those guys out. We have to be careful, too, on the right, because the right might say, look at this explosive evidence of some fraud. And you say, okay, well, I'm going to look at it, but I'm not going to just accept it, and get my hopes up necessarily, because if that falls apart, or even if it was true but there's no way to prove it, that's not going to affect the outcome in the end. We are in a very precarious situation right now. The only thing we can do is wait. We can stand by the president, first of all. We cannot refer to Joe Biden as the president-elect. I think it's preposterous, and silly liberal Republicans like Mitt Romney, court jesters in the kingdom of liberalism, ought to be ashamed of themselves for doing that. We shouldn't do that. Neither should we pop champagne ourselves and say Trump's getting reelected necessarily. We're in a precarious holding pattern, and we're going to know a lot more next week once that legal process is playing out. I hope you enjoyed that short segment from the Michael Knowles Show. Be sure to check out the full episode linked in the description, or download the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.